Al's so up he can't let Gene finish a sentence. That's what I do before I interview people. I do a bunch of. That's how the world works.
Oh, but of course you do.
That's crazy.
No, they tickle the shit out of me, man. They do.
No, I don't care, but it's so it disturbs me because a lot of it's so stupid, and they're doing all the time. So Harry Craig, I think everybody, what you doing in that bag? Y'all went back there.
Well,
y'all went back there and got high without me. No, I went in the bag and took the trash out.
You hit it. That's a great example. To the everyone does smoke.
Yeah,
or if you're in my area, if you are any place where I'm at,
yeah, you must not be shit either.
Right, so you got to be smoking crack like me, because why else would you be any place where I'm at? Because every place I'm at, everybody smoke crack.
Right.
Road. What is happening, family? It is your man, CRB Jr., here with his colleague and partner in
Ronald
crime,
Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, Al Prophet. What up, dog?
What's up, buddy?
That's kind of slick. Tell me about this. What you wearing there, Al?
So this was actually made by, this artwork was made by the son of Freeway Rick, not to be confused with the rapper.
Okay, you mean the actual Freeway Rick, the man?
Yep, his son made this with Sinister Monopoly, so we got some merch coming out with young Ronald on a Kilo Rapper, cocaine, the original cocaine cowboy, got Ronald in his cowboy hat, because he was the big cocaine cowboy.
Right, so people who don't know, I guess if you've been sleeping under a rock, that mega successful show, Snowfall,
where they stole Freeway
Ricky's
and Waterhead Bowl Story and ain't give him no credit or no money.
No credit or no money.
Freeway didn't like John Singleton. He ain't shed no tears when John passed.
All right, P. John Singleton, but it was funny. The last interview I saw with Freeway Ricky, he was saying he, by happenstance, had bumped into John Singletary before he transitioned, and John Singletary told him, I know I owe you some money, man. I'm going to get with you.
I know I owe you.
Sound familiar? I know I owe you some money. I'm going to get with you.
So you know you did him wrong.
So everyone knew that they did. So where can people find this kind of stuff at, though?
Oh, it's going to be available at www.americandope.com. We're doing a relaunch on the website, so we have some new merch with your
new
stuff.
shirt. We're going to partner up on do some things, so we definitely.
So what are we talking about today?
I was having a conversation with the big homie Skip Mongo. Shout out to the homie. Shout out to his partner in crime and lifelong friend, Brother Pep. And Skip gonna come back and
YBI don't stop till the casket drop.
YBI don't stop till the casket drop. Quoted and made famous in your
Rolling,
critically acclaimed documentary, Rolling.
I don't care about you, that bitch,
or that jewelry,
that punk ass car. Because I'm from that.
YB motherfucking I, quote unquote, Brett.
Quote unquote.
Good one.
All right.
R.I.P. for real. B Skizzo original YBI. So hey, we got a lot of stuff coming up.
So they were talking to, Benny Napoleon used to be the Detroit chief of police. He ran for mayor at one point. And they were having a conversation about gangs in Detroit, history of gangs in Detroit, of which apparently there's a bunch of gangs in Detroit now. I wasn't aware. I guess, I don't know, they're all young or something. But he was saying in the 80s, he was at a gang squad, and they got word that there was a Crip or Blood in town trying to recruit people.
That's what, yeah, Skip Mongo again. This is a Skip Mongo exclusive story that we're repeating. Okay, continue though.
And so they put the gang squad, they sat in front of his house and harassed him till he left town. And then there was another Crip or Blood that was, I'm sure plenty of Crips and Bloods passed through here selling some work, but these are people that tried to be here and like start a set or something.
Right.
There was another one in the infamous North End, and before the police could begin their harassment campaign to run him out of town, the North End locals made sure he ain't need to be run out of town because he got ran into the ground. Cancel Christmas.
They canceled Christmas. So, briefly there was, we went through a very brief period of time with the Earl Flynn's BKs.
About a good 10 years.
8 Mile Sconies.
So yeah, the Earl Flynn's and the BKs that people have heard of. The Earl Flynn's is funny. If you look up, so from newspaper articles, you can see like who were considered founders and blah, blah, blah. And a few of them I found when I was doing my first doc, Murder City, I looked some of them up. And a handful of them who were called the leaders in the paper So I did my documentary 07. So these guys had been in prison since like 79. So they had already been in prison 28 years, and it was for stuff like armed robbery, unarmed robbery. How you in prison 28 years for unarmed robbery? Sound like there was a plan to get rid of them, and they railroaded said we're not having no gangs. Unlike in LA, I was interviewing one of the Pyru founders, and I was like, I said, boy, the early days of that stuff doesn't, it sounds like it was just a few key personalities that was influencing everybody. And then the whole little first wave caught like murder cases when they were juveniles or 19 and went and did 4 or 5 years and came back and were heroes. And then that kind of exploded the Crip and blood culture, and the LAPD really did nothing about it. And he said, yeah, if they would have gave us, and this was a guy who himself had, when he was 18 or 19, did about 4 or 5 years for like an early gang murder. It was like, yeah, if they had given me 20 years like they were supposed to, none of this would have took off. It would have died out.
Wow.
And I just did one. Now, this is really interesting. I just put up a thing about Tookie Williams. So, Detroit residents have heard of Don Bosco, the juvenile homes.
Correct.
Every city, I'm sure, has a different. So, Don Bosco is a guy who just got a contract, I guess, for. It's not juvenile jail. I guess it's like if it's the step in between, they can't handle you at home and going to juvenile detention.
Okay.
So in LA, they had the Bob Simmons home. Bob Simmons had been like, I guess, a black football player, and he got the contract. So there's all these things called Bob Simmons homes.
Heard of that.
Tookie Williams, who at the time was already like this famous Crip, he was the right-hand man of Bob Simmons. He was running various Bob Simmons homes.
So a known Crip founder or leader.
And a lot of the early Crip sets are in neighborhoods where there were Bob Simmons homes.
So
How bizarre is that?
it's not a stretch to say that Tookie was using this as a recruiting opportunity?
Yeah, but why? How did Bob Simmons not? Was this some sort of? I mean, I could see back in the day some dumb idea of like, well, these kids gonna be out here causing problems. If see that mafia thing probably influenced a lot of thinking amongst other criminals that it really wasn't applicable to. Like, well, the mafia is organized. Maybe if we can just get these wayward black youth organized, if they're all just Crips, then we can negotiate with them and control their behavior. But 45-year-old men that are in the Gambino family, it's not the same as a 17-year-old with a pistol
And
and a bandana
And they're organized for the sake
of making money.
Of making money.
As opposed for the sake of getting themselves killed and going to prison, which is kind of the whole point of the gang culture, because you're supposed to do stuff for glory. Oh, that's so and so. He just did 10 years in prison. Oh,
But see, that
he's
never
got the clout
that
now.
never got entrenched in Detroit. I mean, the Earl Flynns were known for some jury,
The BKs were packed, but see, the BKs morphed into some of the founders. The BKs were the Curry brothers.
Correct.
So they morphed into drug dealing.
Very quickly.
Not to say drug dealing is good,
But many, as
some
soon,
more
as
mainstream,
soon as that generation had access to guys who had the bag,
like Bob Seger.
different. That's a whole different clique. I told you that. That was a
No,
whole,
Johnny Curry said he was messing with Bob Seger.
see that right on the
The Reefers.
right. But my suburban clients were dealing with Bob Seger and his clique on girlfriend situation. Yeah,
Nose Fiesta.
all the Perico. So,
Bob Seger. Wow.
but I mean, again, you guys got to know. Unless you was just reminding me, the world was different back then, man. The world was different.
So do you remember, let's see, do you remember what age, in 1980, what age were you?
80, I was a sophomore in high school.
Did you ever were you ever out with your upscale suburban black and white friends socializing where there was like, a gang's here, they're going to take our, like any issues with gangs for you guys?
Like in the city of
It's like around, like you were downtown or Hart Plaza and a gang was around or something and you guys had to leave, or
no,
is that something you thought of? Or
By 80?
By 80, it was over with?
No, because I'm talking about 73, 74, 75.
Well, 79 is when I think they railroaded the last of the. Oh, I did try to get. It's funny.
It was old then.
It was already old
was
then.
real
Okay,
old.
so it was really more
And
like.
in fact, by 80s,
it was over.
It didn't even
No,
exist.
by 80.
By 80, it did.
There was no Earl Flynn's in 80?
Because you're talking about like, the heart of the Detroit gang movement is my adolescent years, right? So,
Oh, tell that story about Cobo.
rest in peace, cousin Lala, cousin Tony, cousin Ross.
Oh, were they BKs or Earl Flynn?
Earl Flynn's.
Ah. Because they grew up in the project.
Correct. Jeffries and then later the King homes. I would be fascinated every time long story, we'll get into it in Beyond Street Dreams. My parents used to drop me off while we were living in Southfield. Some weekends, my King home family would come live with us for the weekends in Southfield. But also, some weekends, I went to live with them in the projects on the weekend. And I just loved it because it was a lot more different. Active.
Did you have fights?
Mostly with family and friends, but a couple strangers. Decent with my hands.
We all got to be in Detroit.
Yeah,
We all fought.
My father used to taught me how to box at an early age, though. My mother used to say he gave me brain damage. He hit me so often. We had boxing gloves.
Okay.
Now,
it's good to realize a child needs to know that there's such, like, you can be struck in anger by other human beings. Because if you don't realize there's people that will hurt you, you will put yourself into unsafe situations.
Well, it's just good for a young man, I guess. Even
though I might not necessarily hit a girl, but she should know
how to defend herself.
There's people that
you should
snatch her up.
I think it's just healthy. I think,
because if it's your first, when you get snatched up or punched and you never have, you don't know how to react. You need to.
That's for sure.
I say the main thing about boxing is learning how to take a punch.
I was going to say,
because our natural human instinct is to cover up. But can you take a punch and keep looking at you?
Correct. And take a punch and think about your counter punch or your next move, whether it be defensive or offensive after you have to.
So you would go to the projects.
And
so what this would have been more like 76, 7?
73
Oh,
through
you were a little
77.
kid. Oh, okay.
73 through 77.
So you were what age of 73? 9, 7?
7.
7, okay.
So yeah, so basically.
So that Earl Flynn's was active.
So Lala and them, I'll never forget, they would
they were Earl Flynn.
They'd have their suits on and the glass heels and the Stacey Adams.
Wait, at what age?
So if he's like 7 years older than me.
So when you were 7, he was 14.
Right.
Okay.
And he was young, and they were older than him.
Okay.
And they'd had a Stacey Adams with the glass heels. Some might even have the glass heels with the fish, with the live.
Oh, you've seen that in person?
Oh, for real. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the Bossolinis. And when
glass heels with the fish. Did you feed the fish?
I can't. I ain't gonna even.
Are the fish swimming?
I ain't gonna start like. I assume they were swapping them out. That flow.
Oh, you did it.
Place.
Oh, you did. Okay, and you put it in for your evening out.
Your evening out. So when you cross your legs, you understand. You can see
that
the
would
little
freak me out.
Goldfish. You don't.
Imagine being on drugs and someone sits down and like, wait, is that a fish in your suit?
Dude.
Sir, do you have a fish in your suit?
But they would have all these crazy stories about, and it just fascinated me as a kid growing up in the suburbs about they got into it with the chain gang or with the BKs or they had messed around and had to catch the bus and they had to get transfer on Finkel and they got into it with the Finkel Avenue boys or the Puritan Avenue boys because it was PA.
So they go, FAs and PAs go back to early mid-70s?
To then, yeah. Because I think probably, the only bastion that people were still talking about gangs was when
Southwest Detroit.
Or when the Sconies, people were still talking about 8 Mile Sconies, maybe in the early.
I heard it when I was in elementary. It was still like I think that lasted pretty good to probably mid '80s. They kind of got co-opted into Pony Down or something.
Well, they both were West Side guys, so that would not.
Well, they're saying specific like that West because Pony Down had a lot of stuff going on West 7 Mile, and there was an infamous Pony Down murder. That was in the indictment, I think, that happened in that Scony 8 Mile, Wyoming
there was
area.
A famous 8 Mile Scony.
Or the 4-4, as they call it.
And I would be up at Bobian playing ball or playing tennis or playing baseball, basketball, football, whatever, with the Cobras and the Cougars. But the legend of Dow Baby, the once famous 8 Mile Sconey leader.
Oh, baby.
Dow later killed, going to visit a girl, got shot him outside the door, but he was a true urban. There's anyone like my age, if you say 8 Mile Sconey, they'll be like Dow Baby in them.
Did you meet Dow Baby?
I never met Dow Baby. One of his chief lieutenants, a guy by the name of Kevin Tyler, lived down the street on Pinehurst in Cambridge, who was also one. Shout out to Kevin Tyler. He ended up getting out the gang life and going to the military and changed his life, but he was a terror. Learned martial arts too. An 8 Mile Sconey with a black belt. Ooh wee.
So was that?
Shout out to the Tyler family, Eddie Tyler. Kevin Tyler.
Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. When I put out my first doc, Murder City, I get a lawyer calls me like, "Oh, you've what's that when you besmirch somebody's reputation? Slandered my client, saying he was a gang leader in the Earl Flynn's." I was like, "Well, what's your client's name?" So he says his name. So I went on Otis, which everybody here is for Otis Offender Tracking Information System, and I put him in Otis. I saw what I needed to see, and I called his lawyer back, and I said, "You're right. I'd like to take care of this and discuss compensation for your client. Now I see that there's some discrepancies. It shows that he's a wanted parole absconder. So why don't we all meet down at 36th District Court, and he can take care of his parole absconder status, and we can discuss
compensation for whatever slander.
I ain't hear from him.
You ain't heard no more. But I think you were going at one of the most infamous when you're talking about Cobo Hall or
the Average White Band.
Average White
That
Band.
made the national. That was one of those things that made the national news. That made people think like, "Oh my God, what's going on in Detroit?" Cobo Hall, '76, the Summer of Freedom. And
Average
so,
White Band was a big deal. Had a bunch of
they were
just
huge.
a Schoolboy Crush.
Oh yeah, that's huge. Yes. They were like a big pop group.
Yes.
And so they sold out Cobo, and I have the news footage, and I've used it in various of my docs of the aftermath. And Judge Mathis even talks about it because he said he was in Earl Flynn out to Herman Gardens, where they robbed the whole audience, and they graped, as they say on YouTube. There was a couple grape convictions in there. But you told me something I hadn't heard of how it really got started.
Well, they all showed up there, and which was not uncommon. As I said, I remember as a kid, because as a young kid, my cousins would take me to all the Parliament Funkadelic concerts. So I was seeing George Clinton, P-Funk All-Stars, Bootsy Collins, that whole crew since I was 8 live in concert, right? Different, and things were just different back then. So you would always, and often when we'd go, I'd see my cousins hanging out front in they Borsalinis and they suits and be A Junior, and they wave, and then maybe my other cousins would go inside to see the show. So it was common that those guys all went to concerts, right? Kind of that's been a long Detroit show. But this one particular, the Average White Band concert, the Earl Flynn's all crewed up. I don't
That
know
was
what
when those two big projects, because Detroit had two of the larger, they weren't the largest projects in the country, but the Jeffries and the Brewsters had a lot of units and a lot of residents, and they were both walking distance
to
downtown.
Right. So I don't know if it was
So
50
the whole
of them, 100
flavor
of
of downtown, remember even in the 80s, that whole flavor of downtown, because you could have groups of young people walking from the projects and be in downtown and downtown would get terrorized all through the 80s.
So, everybody from Detroit know the famous Earl Flynn kind of dance, right? So I was down at this Average White Boy concert. I have lots of family friends who was there, and then it got comical. They in there doing, but I had been at many concerts as a child and seen the Earl Flynn's doing Earl Flynn, going up and down the aisleways of the concert, up and down rows of seats. It is.
So they were pretty famous in Detroit during that peak.
Oh, definitely. There was a whole look, I say the whole boss lady suit look thing. And I'm much more familiar with the Earl Flynn situation than with any of the other ones. Some of Eddie's cousins, though, was more like from Kettering.
Oh, it was more like BK.
They were BK, so I did have some role models also.
Were they a little more criminal?
I would say.
Because Johnny Curry and them, they did like a little mini, or they had some interviews and with different guys that started it. And they sound like they were doing store robberies. They might have been maybe we just didn't hear that from Earl Flynn, but the BK thing seemed like they were
black killers.
Yeah, criminal. And then they segued into, of course, the Curry brothers into the drug trade.
There is, of course, a legendary guy, R.I.P. from our world, from the underworld, a major player by the name of Frank Nitti Usher. So at this time, the supposed leader of the Earl Flynns was called Frank Nitti.
Frank Cunningham.
Correct.
That was his name. I'm pretty sure.
It was because
Frank Cunningham.
Benny Bowe, aka Benjamin Cunningham, Amy Cunningham.
Okay, there was
had the
Cunningham.
house across
Frank
the
Cunningham,
street.
yep.
Correct. Because the smallest of the world, just 4 months ago, Frank Cunningham, aka Earl Flynns, we were all at a funeral. God rest R.I.P. Benny Bowe from French Road. The Cunningham family house was directly across the street from 3875 French Road.
Oh.
And-
So the people that started Earl Flynns, or some of them, was on that $100 million block where we did it.
And salute and without the cooperation of the Cunningham family, Benny Bowe
Wouldn't
and
have been
Amy
able to be there, yeah.
No, because they were the default stash, hide, get away, just pillar of the block.
Frank was still there?
No,
Oh.
his cousin.
Oh,
So
okay.
we
What
saw Frank Cunningham at
At the funeral. Oh, so he's around.
Yeah. I mean, like Benny.
People would like to see an interview with him.
Benny transitioned maybe
You get his number?
4, 5, 6 months ago.
You could.
Yeah.
Oh, they would see what he doing. People would like to hear about that.
And-
Earl Flynns. That hasn't been well documented.
I was at the funeral with Eddie Baby. Of course, we had to show respects for days on French Road.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. And he kicked it a little bit, just about. I went out. He left Detroit, went to Vegas, went through his ups and downs in life. But his probably never. It's not over till it's over. Most famous incident is all the Earl Flynns at the Average White Band concert. They must have been really feeling themselves because Frank Nitti and like 25 Earl Flynns bum rush the stage. He snatches the microphone out of the lead singer of the Average White Band, announces to all Cobo Hall, "I'm Frank Nitti, and these is the Earl Flynns," and they all get to
And then they
playing.
robbed the whole, or supposedly, according to the news.
Supposedly, according to the media.
Yeah.
So
Something happened.
But unfortunately for them, that was
Oh,
the
no.
that was the last
Coleman
straw
Young was
for-
mayor at that time.
Yeah, that was the
See, when
last
you had a
straw.
black mayor,
That was
you
the
could
last straw.
then, you could crack down without the fear of like, oh, that's race. Like one thing about Detroit police, they kept gangs out. Now, whether that was good or bad versus drug dealers is a complicated question.
I'm going to
but-
side with the drug dealers.
but when they just they were much more had a pulse. You could tell in LA, as far as black LA, the police department and administration is LA's so gigantic
yeah,
that like parts of the LA metroplex you can just tell like, oh, the government has no pulse on what's going on over here or care.
again,
I mean, the 92 riot in LA, what happened, the police were there at Florence and Normandy,
right.
and the crowd is throwing bottles and rocks at the police. Well, if nothing else, police are supposed to do riot control.
Correct.
Daryl Gates said, instead of fighting them people, just leave. We'll let them, they'll ride around their little neighborhood and burn themselves out. Don't worry about it. So the LAPD tucked tail and left. And that's when you saw the Reginald Dent, all that so imagine it's you and 30 gang, whatever, neighborhood people outside, they're yelling at the police. They trying to arrest somebody, like, no, you're not gonna arrest them. They let him go. You throwing bottles at them and they just leave. And you're like, oh, we done ran the police off.
Wow.
That's what the LAPD's, I ain't gonna call the particular officers cowardly because they were told to leave.
Right.
Bad
They were
decision
following
making.
orders.
Yeah. So that's how disconnected from the community the LAPD was, as opposed to in Detroit, where, well, the famous Livernois and Finkel mini riot where Coleman showed up and hopped up on the roof of a police car and calmed the crowd down. Because they said that almost became another 67 riot.
Well, Skip reminded me that what Coleman said about after that Average White Band concert, Frank Nitti, and we the Earl Flynn.
That's when they started railroading
Well, he
them guys.
said, but let me help you fellas out. I got the biggest gang in this town and they wear blue.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, that's a Coleman Young quote.
Oh.
I think, yeah, he And I remember
Well, they gave a lot of them guys long terms for unarmed robbery. They got them off the streets.
they dismantled them. I mean, I would say from that average white boy counts, it must have been mid 70s, 75.
76.
76. Okay, well, definitely. So by 80, nah, it was a wrap.
Sconies were a little bit around. Because I remember them, I know, because I went to Halley and I went to Hampton, 7 Mile. So,
Okay.
But Sconies was around, but it was
It
at the
seemed
end.
to be more urban legend.
They were around, but it was a small area.
Yeah, I mean that.
They weren't running rampant in the city.
No.
They were in their area. And people still call themselves 8 Mile Sconies, but that's kind of a neighborhood identity.
I mean, Randy.
But you know what that came from was the Coneones, which was actually from the east side too. That 8 Mile Sconey was an outpost of the Sconeones from the east side.
and which is all a playoff on the Corleone
Yes.
family. It's
Well,
where the root.
Mispronunciation.
Right, all of them.
So they were from that same
Yeah, all
area
of
as Earl Flynn's and the
Yeah,
BKs.
yeah.
And then you had, now what lasted longer, the 2020s
I'm not familiar.
out to Jeffries. Mad Dog 2020s, and then that became the 7 Mile 2020s, which was definitely around in my day in elementary school. And you had the 7 Mile 2020s. What was the other 7 Mile old school? 7 Mile BKs,
I'm vaguely familiar.
which I think is what, because Trick calls himself a Crip now. I think he was a 7 Mile BK, and I think that's what turned into the 7 Mile Crips. I don't know. I'm just what I think. Piece.
I think by that time they was just all working out the same bag and needing.
Well,
a family.
people was also
That's it.
it's more of like a once a
Neighborhood.
gang, because still the guys on 6 Mile Wyoming still go for the LAs. That's still a thing. Lunatic Assassins.
And you got the Bronx.
Yeah, the Bronx.
oh,
So
yes.
people have neighborhood and PAFA. Those are neighborhood identities. But once upon a time there were, and maybe there are now. So don't if there is, I don't know. But they were actual like either PAs were doing initiations. Matter of fact, at one time I was hanging out on Puritan so much that me and my boy was taken to a park and there was some type of talk and this, that, and we were like, nah. I don't know if the people were real or whatever, but it was whether they was just trying to lure us into
Nothing but
taking.
love for them boys on period.
Unless they're just trying to lure us to taking getting beat up. But we kept it pushing.
Wow.
Oh no, I've got many friends on Puritan done many work. Oh, we yay 1-800.
Yeah, shout out to Stone.
Free T Stucky.
Was seen in your
Oh yeah,
in your documentary.
your old friend Stoney.
Stone, yeah, is a real PA guy. A real PA guy.
Free stuff.
And speaking of Roland, Brett had a great anecdote about one of his times actually at one of those
Yeah,
concerts.
so
in that
7 Mile,
same-
is 7 Mile 2020 still around? I'm curious. Someone put it in the comments.
Yeah, about him being surrounded.
Oh, that would have
Roland
been.
concert.
When would that
Could
have been?
right in the same
79 or 8?
area.
That would have been their last gas,
That
probably.
had to be their last gas.
They're just getting ready to land a mother.
Because if he's talking about landing the mother,
And he was wearing glass heels. So when did that go out of style? 78,
about
9. That wasn't going on in 80. Glass heels.
You know what? Maybe not glass heels, but brothers was still as late as the early YBI wearing Lou Miles suits.
Yeah, but that's
and
early
dresses.
YBI is the 70s.
Yeah, or late 70s. Right.
Right, it's not
So it-
80
it
though.
so we
By
met,
80, nobody was wearing a goldfish in their shoe.
No.
By 1980.
no, but they were wearing.
But 78, they might have
they
been.
were wearing.
They were dressing.
They was wearing gaiters with suits.
Yeah, okay.
They was wearing gaiters
Yeah,
with
yeah.
suits.
No, that went on, of course.
What'd
all
you
through
say,
the
Lou?
80s.
We got
got
big
a
Lou's
comment. We got a comment says Myers to Livernois is still Stoney in scam territory.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Myers to Livernois. All right. From where up? From like 7 Mile, 8 Mile?
I'm
Must be.
Yeah,
Must be.
Well,
okay.
definitely up to 8.
Yeah.
although
So
we,
what is it, Myers to Livernois?
Yeah.
Okay.
although we sometimes disagree with how BMF is portraying, shout out to Randy Huggins and the Huggins family, who are real Detroiters. And of course, the name Randy Huggins' name, if you at the end of every BMF episode, it says 8 Mile Sconey Productions.
Oh,
He's a West Side boy.
8 Mile Sconey Productions.
At the
I
end of
never
every-
noticed
At
that.
the end of every BMF
Okay, well, that's
episode.
dope. And a shout out to
he
the
a West
old
Side-
school.
He a West Side boy.
Well, I bet you 8 Mile Sconey still
Went to a
around. They
grade
call it
school
the
right
4-4
there.
now.
Pembroke and Myers presentation.
Oh, yeah, that's prime.
Mama coached basketball.
Pembroke and Myers, that's prime area.
Yeah. So it's a small world. Who would have ever thought? Who would ever thought that on TV there'd be production companies called A
A
Mouse?
Mouse Sconey Productions. That's wild.
I guess the same people would have thought that there'd be T-shirts that said "The Fat Man."
Well, they
Motown
walking around
Mafia
with John
established
Gotti. Hey, if you
1969.
can wear John Gotti or something on a T-shirt who killed all those people, and
I mean, yeah.
you can definitely, hey, yeah, it's okay to wear it and to say, "Hey, Mouse
Well, I
Sconey."
mean, people been wearing soldiers pictures on their shirt, and soldiers kill a lot of people. That's a
That's a
different
fact.
you know,
Story for another day.
A story for another day. I mean,
Because we're not anti-American.
because we not anti-America, you know, because keep America strong.
We down with Trump and Harris, whoever wins.
Whoever
That's our
wins,
candidate.
we wish him well.
Yeah, we was with you all
Because
along.
we with the people.
We was with you all along.
In the end, we for the people.
That's right.
Whoever gonna help the people,
No, for real.
that's for real who we with. Because in the end, it's about the people.
Speaking, Kenneth McGriff Jr., the son of Kenneth Supreme McGriff.
Shout out.
His plan, his final plan to try to get his dad out, which is not a crazy plan, because he's exhausted his appeals. There ain't no COVID, like he really is no grounds to get out at this point. He's exhausted his appeals to try to get Trump to pardon him. Which
Dude,
make Trump pardon a lot of people. Kodak.
Southwest, Harry O, Kodiak,
Well, Harry O did his time.
Lil Wayne, I mean,
He did a lot. Harry O did his time. Harry O did Harry O did from 87 to like
I'm not anyway
like
throwing
35
any
years.
shade on Harry O. D.
No, I know you're not throwing shade. I'm saying, but he didn't get let out early, is what I'm saying. He did his.
He was not a part of that compassionate release situation.
Was he?
With
Maybe, but he
Yeah,
did a
I believe-
hell of a lot of time.
Yeah, well, his timing just happened to be-
87. Yeah, okay, maybe he.
Because supposedly,
Well, he did 27 in the state. You know, it's interesting. So in California, because they had
Kwame.
conjugal visits. Here's the thing: if you ever, hopefully, none of you ever have a Fed and a state case, but if you do, try to get it so you serve federal time, because the states will run you concurrent. The feds usually come get you and make you do the Fed time after. So Harry O did about 25 years in the state of California, and then the Fed said, "Oh, now you got to do 20 for us." So he did do a maybe 8 or 10, and then they maybe let him out because of COVID.
yeah,
He did a long time.
Yeah, it was supposedly the hierarchy, obviously his relationship with Snoop, Snoop's relationship
Yes.
with Martha Stewart, Martha Stewart's relationship with
And he did enough time.
And yes, I mean,
30, listen, whatever a guy did, if you didn't execute him, then 35 years is enough time.
dude, if you
Speaking
like-
of which, free Spencer Holloway.
Free Spencer Holloway.
So, speaking of which, so by
for real, Free Spencer
for with that
Holloway.
YBI thing,
And Cousin Craig up there in Coldwater.
speaking of gangs, Cousin Craig, free Cousin Craig. Speaking of gangs, I mean, YBI was, I mean, they were selling drugs, but it was like a gang too, though, in the sense of, I mean, it was a strong group identity. And like Brett told us, first they were Martindale maniacs, stomping people just for walking down the street. So that cohesiveness from being kind of like a street gang, oh, now you're going to get some money, but those bonds of, well, we already been through fighting in the trenches together, so now when we come together for this drug crew, we already have bonds established. And a lot of the mafia guys, at least the old school ones, they grew up in street gangs.
Yeah,
John Gotti.
Lansky,
Oh,
all the
even
way
John
back to-
Gotti's age, they were street gangs.
Yeah, my-
So you got to go through that phase, and then you graduate, not to apply it as good into being a mobster or the dope man or whatever, but what was the earliest years that you heard? Because you said Spencer, and then Skip said at Oak Park High School, people were running around saying YBI in like what, 77?
In 77, I'm in 7th or 8th grade. We're at E.J. Letterly Middle School in Southfield, Michigan. And
What percentage African American was that place?
Maybe 8, 9.
Oh, wow.
Max 15. Because by that time you're pulling out blacks from all over Southfield. But Spencer Holloway,
Sorry, I
never
had to get
forget, he is out the window. And we getting on a school bus. Every bus goes to a different neighborhood. This is the bus for the kids going back to Northland Gardens. And he's talking about YBI.
Was he Earl Flynn in kind
He
of?
was half Earl
Was
Flynn.
that kind of like a Detroit? Did everyone kind of?
You
do
know,
that?
eventually the
It was
Earl,
like a dance.
the Earl Flynn dance just became a Detroit dance.
So they made that up, or did they adopt it, or you don't know?
I
Was
don't.
it a dance before them, and that became their trademark? Or
I cannot
Okay.
speak, but it's
got highly associated with them.
long after the Earl Flynn gang was gone.
People been Earl Flynn in forever.
Detroiters
Earl Flynn.
That's a
with
Detroit.
pride
Yeah.
did the Earl Flynn dance.
Yeah.
When hard times come on at the cabaret, everybody Flynn it. It's just we adopted, So on that part,
like the Blade Icewood dance, basically.
whatever you want to say, right about those young men, they impacted this city,
Culture.
their culture and dance. But back just real quick, because I know I'll catch a lot of heat on this. I would say that some of the early maybe neighborhood boys hanging out, young boy stuff, but very quickly it morphed into it was just a narcotic distribution organization.
But there was a gang early. It had a gangy kind of component.
Sure. Because you got to think right when those guys are coming to
And they
age.
probably had to fight, and they were going on those blocks in different neighborhoods, and that was when
I was gonna say that
the drugs.
Dexter-
You didn't immediately just go shoot the block up. You might have fought. Who was
No,
over
that's
there.
what I was saying. So hierarchy of toughness.
Yeah.
And Pep talked about it in the interview here, and we're gonna have him back when he would. When Tracy took him up to the park, and he was like, "You're gonna have to fight once we get up there. You go around there where Brett and all those kids are.
They
hanging
fight.
out, They fight. It was those gang type initiations to get respected, and where we at?
Well, I was just asking about we morphed. We were talking about went from the average white band takeover, Kobo, and then we were talking about YBI.
Oh yeah, so Spencer. Yeah, Spencer's 77. This is 77. He is.
So he's got Earl Flynn and he's screaming YBI. So it's kind
It's
of
all morphing, right?
coalescing from a gang and a drug
Drug
thing.
thing.
Well, 70, were they really? Boy, I mean, I wasn't there, but from what you read and what we've heard from people we know they're part of YBI, I don't know. That sounds like that might have still been a kind of a gangy thing. That when did they really have some major drugs? Not in
80.
7. Well, what about 79?
79, 80.
Yeah, 78.
They was getting money.
78.
I think that was just again.
77 might have been the last year.
These are some questions we will when we get Peppers get back to get some
So
heart.
I got a question. So
Yeah.
YBI, the inception was like 75 with the block incident. Where did they go directly?
Well,
into-
when Black got that money, that's when they probably jumped up into being serious drug
That's what
dealers.
I'm.
But the identity of where the Dexter Boys or the Martindale Maniacs or whatever, that predated it a little bit. So that
Okay.
might have been like 76 or something.
I'm gonna call Cousin Keith.
Because that's what Brett said.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because he said by the late 70s gangs had died, but he said we were Martindale Maniacs.
Well, you got to think about it. So if you was, if you're our age, and I'm of the same age as all those guys, they had been influenced by all the gang, by the Earl Flynn's, Finkel Avenue.
Well, when
PA.
there's other gangs around, it'll cause you and your friends to become a gang for self-defense purposes.
Yeah.
As we know.
And
Because if them 30 guys are always walking around over here
And-
picking us off
and let us
one
not-
and two at a time, well, now the 30 of us are going to group together and we
Solidarity.
might as well have a
Yeah.
name too.
and there's only a half a mile distance between Dexter and Davison and Dexter and Finkel, where the Finkel Avenue, so
Oh, yeah, right.
it ain't like
Oh, is that where the FAs kind of started more down, all the way down by
around
Dexter and Finkel?
Livernois, Finkel area.
Oh, okay. They weren't west.
Going all the way west, probably back to Greenfield.
But at that point in the late 70s, what was the demographic of like Finkel and Greenfield?
Nice.
So, but
You talking about 80? What you talking about? 70s?
79.
Oh shoot,
or
there's
something.
probably still a few
Yeah.
white families still around. Not that that makes the neighborhood good or bad, but just to show.
yeah.
Not that that's the criteria.
Yeah,
right?
like honey baked ham on Finkel or
But
something like
it was
that.
honey baked
Yeah.
ham.
Oh, there was a honey
What's the
bacon.
famous pizza joint right there at Greenfield?
Shields?
No,
No, Devils.
Red Devil.
Devil,
Well, that
Red
lasted
Devil,
until-
yeah.
That probably
All the way
lasted
through high
to
school.
05.
Yeah,
No, that was there till like 03 or
That was a
something.
famous institution.
Yeah.
Red Devils pizza.
Sanders Barbecue,
Yep.
right there on Greenfield and Pier or Finkel.
That definitely lasted. I ain't
Forever,
there.
all
That
the
was
way,
to
yeah.
2000s.
See what I'm saying? So even though there was that gang activity, we were just talking about Detroit was just so much of a bigger city. So even with
There's just a
those
lot more
gang,
people, yeah.
with that gang activity, it was being not disguised, but it was.
There was a lot
functioning-
going on.
A lot of other stuff
Other
going
going
on
on too, yeah.
Than that hookup there.
Now, but you never remember hearing about, because you guys were over there on French Road. We always heard about in the 90s the PDQs put them down quick, and they were supposedly off French Road. You don't never remember hearing about them?
No, I don't think they wanted to come on our block.
I guess you were just selling drugs. Yeah.
Those kind of.
Well, they coexisted. They weren't. I don't know if they were. No, they got because they were messing
Was
with
they
the
moving the
Jamaicans.
bag?
They made it to the news. There was a news story. I always remember. I remember watching the news, and it was federal agents that
I
conducted a
vaguely
raid on the
remember
put them
that.
down quick gang on the east side of Detroit.
You know, this town, I'm gonna tell
And
you.
people are still, if you go on the east side over there and you say PDQ, people be like, oh
But
yeah,
I'm gonna
they
tell you, man,
remember that.
for real. This ain't the kind of town where none of those gangs or labels can save you. Either you bout your affairs or you ain't, because guys in this town really don't care. There is no color or moniker. You know, YBI spread. Yeah, they were known to be tough guys. They had their hitters
But
in
they
there.
spread because they were making money.
They spread because they brought money and prosperity. You know, in Popping Them Day, their network was all over the city. Because guys in this town, especially prior to 2000, any guy that was outside had the capacity.
Oh, you had, yeah.
That, you know, they
ARD
don't,
said,
they don't care nothing
if
about.
you can't hold it, ain't no use to being out.
I'm here, yeah, you didn't. So just saying I'm with this, you'll say I'm with that, and then those guys are gonna do what they're going to.
Well, and then the problem with that,
yeah.
when you are saying I'm from this street, I'm from this group, well, now you're obligated to conduct yourself with a certain level of tough guy talk. Because the people from over there can't say you from Dexter to try to intimidate somebody and then not fight. The people
Correct.
from Dexter gonna get you,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
That's the main. If you're in a gang in LA, the main thing you got to worry about. You better not turn down a fight. Oh, it was 3 of them, so I ran. Oh, really? Well, we're gonna beat you up.
Yeah.
Or you'll get DP. Listen, DPs are real in LA. Disciplinary. You will get beat up by your own fellow gang members.
Oh, yeah.
Quicker
wow.
than the other people because you're not really even gonna cross paths with the other people that much.
Wow.
Oh, if word gets back, oh, Courtney was in jail and he turned down a fight with the so-and-sos, oh, we gonna get you.
See, we Detroiters we were much more interested in financial freedom.
Well, what's
We were much more interested in
interesting though, the
finance- in
explosion of the LA, like the gang stuff was around and strong, but of course, when did LA's murder rate explode? 84, 85, 86. That's when a bunch of the gangs, like there were 2 well-known groups that made the New York Times, the Third World and Whitey's Enterprise, which were crack dealing groups, but they were primarily, they had certain gangs were in each one.
Because I guess it's always about when I was down.
They're the manpower, the 16-year-olds. They're working the spot.
I was gonna say I dealt with a guy out of Belize, and he was serving a lot of both Bloods and Crips, and he was
in LA?
In LA, and he was like, man, them niggas riding Bentleys and shit, they ain't that's all for the whoever.
I mean, they are that, but there's other stuff going on too.
Right, because really running a real narcotics trade and actual gang banging can't coexist.
No, they don't go together.
You can't be running a real.
Because being a real gangbanger, at least in LA, is a full-time job.
Well, no, you can't be. I'm not giving you bricks, and I know that you do shit every day purposely that's gonna get you life.
Well,
besides selling my
and
bricks.
also, I can't not sell this person drugs. Is he in a different gang?
No, it doesn't work. It's just right. It just doesn't.
It just doesn't go together.
Just right. Things that because you're a real Tier 1 narcotics trafficker, you're doing it not as a hobby.
I mean, even have just a crack house.
I want to make money, right? I don't care.
You need to be able to go into different neighborhoods.
No one has time for it.
Well, that's why, an interesting.
We can't put our work on this block.
Interesting game.
Why? Because they wear a different color.
Anyone from LA can chime in, but
Yes.
I get the
Shout out to LA City of Angels.
impression. So the Hoovers. So there's a freeway, the Harbor, the I-10 freeway, or well, the I-10 goes east to west, but the I-210, whatever it is, there's a north-south freeway that goes through the middle of South Central down to the port. and it runs basically right along Hoover. And of course, you've heard of the Hoovers, right?
Correct.
So the Hoovers, they say that so Freeway Rick, they call him Freeway because they had a crack house off each
Yeah, I heard
exit
that. I heard that.
off of the freeway, but that was along Hoover, and Freeway was from somewhere off Hoover, and they say that the Hoovers were getting so much money and were so entrenched in the drug business, they broke it. They became the Hoover criminals. They stopped being the Crips. And they were like, we're not Crips or Bloods, we're just the Hoovers because they were making so much money in the drug business.
That would make sense.
And that they became like, for a time, like a drug organized crime, I get for some period of time. Now, I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's at least partially true.
And that just would make sense.
Makes
because
sense.
Once I start making money, and I understand the culture. I don't really understand it, but I understand
It's a
cultures.
culture, yeah.
It's a culture, it's a thing, and that's what we're talking about. It's a generational thing. But what I do know is about human nature. And when I have a pocket full of money on a regular basis, I find other things to do with my time than beat up people and fight.
Yeah, and those gang alliances,
Yeah, other things.
when I come in and say, hey, Courtney, well, I'm going to give you, $1,000 a day to run this crack house, but your Earl Flynn boys or your Hoover buddies can't be over here robbing the spot.
Correct.
Guess what? You're going to handle them.
You're going to handle them, and you say
So you're going to co-opt the gang by
to
bringing a
them
few in.
for security measures and some things they can handle, maybe distribution, right? And I mean, let's just be honest. Rich men behave different than poor men often. A man with money behave different than a broke man. It's much easier to be angry and mad and ready to bust somebody in the head and beat up somebody. But you ain't gonna find two guys with $50,000 talking about, let's go to the park and fight it out.
Well, that's why one of
Not
the
too often.
nicknames,
It could happen, but not
the
too often.
Rolling 60s became known as the Rich Rolling 60s. That's what they called themselves
Not
in
to
the
be
80s.
confused with Detroit's Rolling already,
No,
which
right.
was synonymous with their money.
Well, rolling in LA means, so you got rolling 60s, 90s. It means your territory rolls through all of the 60s.
Ah.
60th to 70th.
70th.
From 90th to 100th. There's
Wow.
the rolling 100s, the rolling 90s, the rolling 60s, rolling 30s. Your territory rolls through all those streets. But the rich rolling 60s, because the rolling 60s get so much money, they're the rich rolling 60s.
And they-
a lot of drug activity, then they got into bank robbery. But there's old photos of them, they got their shirts on, and instead of just saying rolling 60s, they rich rolling 60s on the back.
That's a whole.
Which is interesting. So it was
Very
a
interesting.
combination of the two.
That-
And so their pre-existing group identity of the gang probably made it easier. If you were one of them and you had the bag, I'm going to go get my fellow gang members. We're already have gone through to try. I know that he's not a punk and he's not a punk.
Well, as I was saying, the hierarchy's already kind of been established.
Right, we know who
he's got leadership
is willing
skills.
to be outside.
Right,
And
he got leadership skills.
he's not scared to go to, these guys ain't scared to go to jail.
And he
when
is-
the police come, they're not just gonna, because they already been gang banging.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. All of that kind of helps in the breeding ground. I don't think you have to. I mean that's why when you come out of tough environments, you get tested.
Oh,
And
young.
your peer groups are gonna know.
Well, by
who-
the time by the time you hit high school, you're already you're already tough.
Yeah.
You've already been fighting 3 times.
You've already been punched a
Man, you
few
might
times.
fight at school, fight on the school bus home, and then when you get off the bus, you fight again. I easily could have 3 fights in a day
Very easily. Very easily.
due to my light skin and my fine hair.
Good hair.
Yes.
Your good hair. People
My good hair.
We wanted to test you.
Yes, that's right.
We wanted to test you in HP. Well, you were being in one of America's truly more
Oh
violent
man,
cities. Highland Park in the 80s and 90s.
Real life.
Shout out to HP, but them kids don't play. They're surrounded in a city.
I realized, like,
they
we're
don't
so at
play.
this elementary school I went to Hampton. It had kids from Sherwood Forest. It had
Correct.
PAs. It had kind of a weird the way the boundaries are drawn. It had kids from different type of neighborhoods. But I remember the kids in my neighborhood. They were disappearing in 5th, 6th grade. They were going away to juvenile. What happened to Gary? Oh, he hit an old man in the head with a rock and tried to kill him. This is like 5th grade.
Oops. Oops. There's trauma. Ladies and gentlemen, there's trauma and drama. Speaking of, to switch it up on a lighter note, I had sent you a post about Junior Bridgman, the basketball player worth now The number 3, they have him in that little article. They were
The
saying
richest African American.
African American former basketball player, behind only Michael Jordan and LeBron.
But he didn't
James.
make his money from sports.
But he did not make his money from sports. He owns over 600
What, fast food?
Wendy's.
Wendy's.
He made his.
Is he the biggest Wendy's?
He is the biggest Wendy's franchise owner in America. And but as we was talking about, obviously the project we got coming up, Beyond Street Dreams. They're beyond street dreams in the streets, and they're beyond hoop dreams too. And I think
When you can
sometimes
get
the
away
people,
from being
people in our
in-
culture don't get the credit when they get beyond street dreams.
Oh, you don't hear about it.
And can see beyond.
Okay, you know the first black billionaire, that guy, what was his name? Reginald.
Lewis, you talking about?
Yes.
Delicious Foods.
So his daughter.
Great book, White Men, White Guys
would have all the fun.
Yes.
His daughter just launched a home office management. So do you know what a home office is?
I mean, I know what rich people,
Okay,
rich
yes.
people have.
So when
they
you
call
were
it home
super well, like hundreds of millions, billionaires,
You just have-
instead of like, oh, we give our money to a hedge fund or this money manager, you have your own little 3-4 people that they just manage your money.
Yes.
So she just launched a company, I think it's called Beatrice Home Office Services or something, where they'll set up a home office for your family.
Oh,
So it's like a home office service.
awesome. I need to write that down.
Yeah.
Because yes, I'm familiar with the wealthy. For long, you'll just hear, what do? They No, they didn't go work for Citibank or Goldman Sachs.
Work
They
for the
just
home
they
office.
just go work for the home office.
Which manages, like when you have
A real portfolio,
that's to
multi-diversified.
manage $500 million is a
A
job.
bunch of
For
full-time
multiple
jobs.
people, yeah.
So, but that's really cool to see African that the
Yeah, so that's his daughter,
Lewis,
black woman, yeah, his daughter. Yeah.
and people like
And it's
that.
called Beatrice after Beatrice Lewis.
Yeah, that-
So Reginald Lewis,
yes.
technically is supposedly first black billionaire.
Correct.
And he did some Wall Street. He leveraged. He took over Beatrix. Was it Beatrix
He
Foods or
rolled
something?
3 companies until he took over Beatrice International, and it was the Beatrice International.
Unfortunately, died very young.
Right there
young,
after.
yeah.
Heart attack.
Brain cancer.
Oh, brain.
Brain cancer.
But yeah, so his daughter obviously must be a very sophisticated woman because she's just set up. So check it out, Beatrice Home Office Management or something like that.
Speaking of
Got a
beyond
website.
street dreams, hoop dreams, or in Reginald Lewis's gridiron dream. I happen to have read his book, so
I read it in college.
He
I don't
was a
remember.
quarterback.
I remember the cover. It was just him and he had a
Played
cigar.
college football, right? Exactly. Played college
I
football.
think
as a
Jay-Z
quarterback.
stole that for one of his album covers.
One of his looks.
Because it had like a white, just had like that
reason-
white blew out background with just him in a suit with a cigar. I said, why do white guys get to have all the fun?
Yeah. It's a great book. It's very inspiring. I think we're gonna start doing some more content about different kind of people because they're people like Reginald Lewis's daughter and what she's doing with the beach. That's part of our
Some
culture
high-powered
too.
shit, too.
That's part of our culture
Very
too. And if we,
complex,
and I ain't no shade on Rick Ross the rapper because actually I like what he's done entrepreneurially even more than his music, which I don't mind his music either. Rose. But he markets himself. He talk crazy, but they all talk crazy because they're in the entertainment business, which is half talking
They
crazy.
do all talk crazy.
They all, yeah. I mean, he say no Noriega, the real Noriega. But I'm just, I do. As a business person,
He was only a turnkey so that he could smuggle in drugs to his big home.
Correct. But if we're gonna celebrate that, everybody who
For those of you that do or don't like Vlad TV or interested in Vlad got a big capital influx that allowed him to grow what he was doing from his lawsuit from Rick Ross. Because Vlad, when he was doing journalism, he's the one who figured out, he was like, oh no, Rick Ross was the correction. And at first Ross was like, no, they photoshopped me on there. And Ross had his people jump on Vlad at the Ozone Awards and roughed him, broke his jaw and all that. And he got like a $250,000 settlement and that helped him.
that's kind of was it.
I mean, he was already doing his thing.
But that helped fund-
yes,
helped
that
fund his-
pushed forward his video thing.
Wow. But with that, we need to talk about people from the culture who don't rap, who aren't athletes, who really are handling the bag. So when you hear like that's a great
And they're
story,
not just criminals.
right? And that ain't it no more, right? So when you hear about blacks with their own family home office, that's for real some level
And
up.
setting up home offices for other families.
That's
As a
a
service.
real level up thing. That ain't Cartier and Cadillac flossing.
No, you're part of the elite, the system of the economic elites.
elite.
Now, whether you think that's good or bad is another question,
Well,
but that's what it
It's
is.
better than being part of the economic
diselite.
under elite, under
Better than having a
finance.
pair of Cardis and living in a house in Detroit where there's a hole in the front porch.
And I don't knock Cardis. They make nice glasses, but I think
Get your porch fixed
I
first.
think, man, it's expectations. I think a lot of times we sell ourselves short in our culture because we will take a W, what we call winning, and it'd be over some grade school
Small
trinkets.
W.
It'd be a really small W, like the one you can't see. Because if some people setting up home offices, and other people got
Are selling out their home.
you're funny, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah, we got to get some expectations, and I don't begrudge anybody, and I know a little bit about the struggle, not direct so much, but I've been around the struggle, so I understand. I know of it. That what I'm calling a little win, if you coming from a real point of desperation, it's a big win.
But now when you get that one, think
You got.
about the next
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Don't we? And
Your
so
goal should be to get out of a situation where you're always at risk.
you want
To take a risk to make some money and then go blow it.
is we pushing, yeah, and we again.
So now you put your back right back against the wall.
when you got to be able to see a different way. But then that might, well, we're gonna get into all that. We got to learn some stuff about deferred gratification. We got, yeah, you heard about that?
Big
shit?
phrase.
The big phrase. That basically means
You just called me?
stack before you jack.
Stack before you stack and don't jack.
I'm trying to give people baby steps. So let's just stack it. What? Once you stack a few bands, it ain't as easy to let it go as when you only got that one band. Because just that 2-3 weeks of disciplining to stack, you be like, man, I kind of went through a lot of shit to get this money.
Man.
But if every time you get a band, you go jack it off, you never get.
No, there's a lot of people in America, and this is across all people that have advanced degrees and make $200,000 a year. It's like I made, whether you made 600 this week or 6,000, well, I need to spend it.
I gotta spend it, yeah. Yes.
It's called money burning a hole in your pocket.
So we had here, we did me and Lou and family team that we are financial freedom, because I look back and the one thing that my father used to always say, well, when people ask him, do you regret what you did, and he always say, for real, I didn't want my kids to have to kiss nobody's ass in this world. Papa always said, in the end, that's his justification. I did what I did so I could give my kids a chance where they wouldn't have to kiss ass in this world. 'Cause I grew up seeing too much ass kissing and been in that position, and I just didn't want that. But that requires some kind of financial freedom, which means you can't jack it all off. And this is coming from a guy who was a master at jacking off money for a long time. But luckily,
Got it out your system.
I got it out my system the hard way.
I had to get
spent
it out
my
of my system a little bit, but
Yeah.
I did it pretty quickly.
You got anything, Big Lou?
No, that's about it. Check out Karen Knocks Out Cancer.
KarenKnocksOutCancer.com.
6-0.
Lou's mother's book about her defeat of cancer. Not
6-0.
once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, but 6 times.
She like Floyd Mayweather. She ain't lose.
Undefeated.
Undefeated.
She just paid us a visit up here today.
Just did a great book, very inspirational. I think Lou will be showing some different ways.
Yeah.
Little talk her and her sister did again. Shout out to Anita, her sister.
Elfard
maybe.
Stevens on the camera.
There you go.
Named after the Mahdi, but that's an inside
Elfard.
joke. They gotta know about the Mahdi. Y'all
That's
gotta
right.
know.
That's right.
Peace to the Nation of Islam, and Brother Troy ran
The Morris Sign Symbol of America.
and the Morris Sign Symbol. Y'all gotta check them out if y'all ain't hip to trail on
Man.
7 Mile in Murray Hill.
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's rather.
7 Mile St. Mary's, great store. Moorish herbs.
Moorish herbs. For real, fam.
They got smoothies. They got food. Alkaline water.
I mean,
herbs and spices.
things that
It's a
actually,
nice store too.
things that
Yeah, it
actually
is.
keep.
Got nice clean
So
new kitchen.
Oasis in this
Yeah, they
food
put
desert.
some nice.
It
They put
is.
some money into that place. It's nice.
Right, that is, you just said it, Lou. Oasis in the food desert,
Yes, indeed.
for real,
In
for
the
real.
cultural desert.
In the
They got books in there.
They got a bunch of good books too, where you learn something about your history, your people. So all
Shout out
this,
to Morris Herbs. Sub Island St. Mary.
yeah, for real, and again,
I'm
shout out,
drinking a Morris tea right now.
yeah, to brother Kevin, saw brother Troy from the Nation of Islam. They're gonna come and support Dr. Johnson's event here at August 24th for Soho, the Streets of Hope.
Oh no, more herbs. There it is. More herbs.
More pretty clever play on words there. Their marketing. No, that's a class act over there. I mean, the staff in there is always knowledgeable, helpful.
Brand new plate, like very nice inside.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
they must have
now
redid the whole building.
they're doing business right. It's not a nice ran black business. It's a nice ran business.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's the way it's supposed
They
to
got
be.
vegan food in there.
All that. Cavario, when you come to town, we ain't gotta drive all around to get you a good vegan meal. Just messing with you. Shout out to brother Cavario. Some great stuff. We got to be showing more of the stuff from our trip in New York with him.
All right.
All right, family. It's your man, CRB Jr., Al Prophet, American Dope Legend, Big Lou Stevens in the background. Hey, man.
Pick up.
You guys pretty good on camera. Y'all be acting like y'all do this. For
Right my mouth on them street corners for many decades.
Y'all be acting like y'all.
From the makers of Motown Mafia, beyond the headlines, beyond the crime, beyond the glamours and gold, they don't run around the streets. They run the streets. Beyond Street Dreams. Documentary coming soon to Amazon Prime, Tubi, and Pluto TV.